Hi, I wanted to impulsively talk about being gentle with yourself, especially when it comes to your writing. My dog is barking upstairs. I'm gonna be gentle with him. I guess this is gonna be like an AUTHORTUBE real talk. So I've been thinking about something today, which is basically that I'm finally in a place, not of forgiveness, but of acceptance of where I'm at with my book. So it is the 25th of July when I'm filming this. I had a plan to write 8,000 words in July. I'm just at about 3,000. So you know what? It's pretty good. I've done a very good job and I'm going to write more. I know that I'm going to, at least hit probably about 4,000. If I don't, whatever, but I'm pretty sure I'll make good on my goal. And I've been writing a book called Hallowed Bodies. It's not really a book. It's more of a really long short story or a short novella. I think I wrote the last time pretty consistently in Hallowed Bodies was July 12th. So second week of July. And then 2 weeks passed. I had already taken a long break from it. It was about a week and I was like, oh, I don't want to do that again. And then an even longer time kind of passed and I couldn't figure out man, what about this book is bugging me? And other things were happening in my life too, to be fair. I've been very used to frequently writing. The longest that I've gone between drafting is 2 weeks. So the same thing here. It's just about 2 weeks. It hasn't been any longer than that. Even when I was writing Seventh Virtue, I haven't taken off more than about 2 weeks when I'm drafting. I have been writing a lot basically, and that's been great, but it also I think has created kind of an anomaly of expectation in my mind. I think I've gotten really used to writing frequently, and when I do write frequently and things don't work out, it has started to get more frustrating, I think, than it used to be. When I was writing Feeding Habits, so from about 2019 to 2022, really 2021 actually, I was really used to taking really long stretches of time off from writing because writing was hard. And that was just something I figured I just slowed down my process a lot. I used to be a really fast writer when I was a kid, when I started writing, and then things really slowed down when I found my literary style, when I started writing literary fiction. But then when I started Seventh Virtue, which is contemporary fantasy, everything kind of sped up again. So I started to get really used to not taking 2 months or 3 months in between writing, or, not writing a 100-word paragraph and then not writing again for 6 weeks. And there's nothing wrong with that because I'm in the boat right now. What I realized was because I was writing Seventh Virtue, it was very high output. It was supposed to be that way. It's designed that way. It's also goofy. So mistakes that I was making, I didn't care and I wasn't fixing them because it wasn't supposed to be a project that was made for that. Since I started writing more literary fiction, which is a big surprise for me this year, I was supposed to write literary fiction, but not this literary fiction. Since I really started writing again in the mothwork world, which I will link a video that explains all these projects if you're new to this channel. All of the books that I've referenced so far from a series called Fostered. And so at one point in the Fostered universe, there was a series called Mothwork, which comprises now of 4 projects. So there's Mothwork, then I recently wrote a novella called Body Back, which comes timeline comes right after Mothwork, then Hallowed Bodies, which is the project that I'm working on right now, and then the final book in that little series, which is Feeding Habits. So the 2 novels are Mothwork, Feeding Habits, and there are 2 novellas in the between that are new projects, because Mothwork really is an old project of mine. It was from 2019, but it's become relevant in my life again. I have been struggling a little bit with Hallowed Bodies, which was a surprise because it came out of nowhere. Originally, writing this book was amazing, and it really showed me what people mean when they say shiny new idea syndrome. I never thought that I struggled with that. I wasn't sure why. Maybe it was because I've been writing with the same characters, so they're always pretty familiar to me. But this time around, I could tell that this was, yes, a shiny new idea. And this even happened to me with Body Back, where writing the first bit of it was just very, very exciting to me. And I'm not used to the point after. Now that I look back though, when I look back at all my projects, there is that point where the newness wears off and you're in the middle of the book. And I personally love the middle. That's my favorite part to write because I don't like starting things and I don't like finishing things. So typically the middle is where I thrive. So it was a bit weird that I started struggling kind of right smack in the middle of Hallowed Bodies. Bodies. Also, the project didn't do anything to me. Typically, when projects don't work for me, it's because, there's something maybe emotionally I'm not feeling with the project. I'm not connecting to it. I don't understand it. Or it's causing me grief in some sort of way. Like with Feeding Habits, it was every step of the way I was insecure about it. I was fighting my ideas. I was deleting things. I was adding things back. I was deleting them again. So that was like a very cumbersome process for me. I wasn't expecting Hallowed Bodies to be similar. And it isn't similar, not to conflate the two drafting experiences, but it has been a bit freaky because out of nowhere, the project kind of combusted in my face. And I was like, what did I do to you to do? Like, I didn't do anything. I didn't ask for this. This is kind of rude. I haven't really struggled like that in a while. So it's not that I didn't struggle like recently with writing, but this is a different kind of struggle. With Body Back, I felt very sure of everything. And maybe I'm just like being kind of like, now I can look back because I have hindsight. I'm just like, oh, it was really not that bad. And I knew what I was doing the whole time. So maybe I just am being a little, out of touch. But it was like a different kind of struggle. This time with the Hallowed Bodies, the struggle is that I don't know what happened. I think maybe I just took a little bit too much time off because life things were happening. And because the distance happened, I lost like a spark. And I haven't really been able to find it since. With that said, I'm trying to get back into the process of consistently drafting. I don't know if I'm going to make my goal for Camp NaNoWriMo. I don't really care. I had just wanted to finish this project in July because I didn't want to write it for that long. But then I took basically like 2.5 weeks off from writing. So that's kind of like more than half of the month. So it's fine if it takes a little bit longer. But in my quest to do that, I've been doing a couple of things. So this is what I do when I don't feel like writing. Essentially, I was doing a lot of reading. I've read a couple of things so far. I read a poetry collection, which one of you actually recommended to me. Thank you. It's called Physical by Andrew McMillan. If you're the person who recommended it to me, thank you so much. It's one of my favorites now. I highly recommend it. And I'm going to read the rest of Andrew's poetry. Actually, one of the lines I used as the epigraph for Hallowed Bodies. There's a poem, I can't remember which poem it comes from, but the line is, how much of fighting is the need to touch another man, which I think is very Lone and Clark core, so I thought it was perfect. Reading has been useful in rejuvenating myself. The thing is, I almost have to give myself permission to read, and I hate being that way but it's just the way that I am. I definitely struggle with toxic productivity and feeling like I need to constantly be doing things. Part of it is like a sensory need. I like to be like stimulated, and like my writing is also a special interest for me. And so I kind of need to be engaging. If not, I start to feel like very dysregulated. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing about me and how like my autism comes into play with my writing. Sometimes I struggle to like sit down and spend hours reading a book. So I read that poetry collection. At the beginning of writing Hallowed Bodies, I read Big Shadow by Marta Balcevich. I loved this book so much. This was published by a Canadian indie. Please buy this book and please read it. If you've been on this channel, you know I don't stop talking about The Girls by Emma Cline and Demigods by Eliza Robertson and The History of Wolves by Emily Fridland. This is in that vein if you're into that kind of book, but it's very quiet. It is basically how I think of it, History of Wolves, if it took place in the 90s in New York. So I loved this so much. The narrator is just great and Marta's writing is fantastic. So I just wanted to send some love for this book. This was a huge inspiration in terms of prose right at the beginning of Hallowed Bodies. So I read Eliza Robertson's new book, which is called I Got a Name, which is actually true crime. I'm also currently listening to the audiobook of What We Both Know by Fawn Parker, and I'm finishing up a read of Pony Boy by Elliot Duncan. If you're also in the position where like you just can't write, because that's how I felt. I feel like brain very empty. And it could be that like I've been writing a lot and I probably should take a break, but I don't want to. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm not saying that you should do that, but I want to write. It's just like something's just not connecting. So I have been reading quite a bit. Something else that I decided to do, which has actually inspired me to film this, was read some of my own writing because I love my writing and I think I'm a great writer and I want to reread my own work for inspiration because I'm my number one inspiration, especially when I write good things. things. If I can set the example for myself, like, and show myself I was able to do this in the past, it also reinforces that I can do it right now. Feeling like, oh man, I'm stuck. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I don't like that feeling. I have been writing for nearly 10 years and this still happens. So it's not like that you're alone if you ever feel that way. I have a lot of experience with writing and still there's moments where I'm like, what am I doing? I have no idea. And it's been very destabilizing. I just was trying to draft and I kind of was like, I'm sick and tired of feeling confused because I know that there's a vibe and I know that I've done it before. So I opened up Mothwork, which is, you know, the book that comes before Hallowed Bodies and Body Back. And I opened up chapter 6, which is called Holy Queen. And there's a great excerpt that, you know, the beginning starts. I can just read it. So this is how Holy Queen starts. I wrote this when I was 17 in 2019. 17-year-old Rachel was elite, though she was very insecure about her writing. So listen, like, this is a cycle. We're always unhappy with where we're at. It's just, I think for a lot of writers, it can just be a part of the process. On the flip side, I'm also very confident with where I'm at, but it doesn't also mean that there aren't moments of unhappiness either. This is how chapter 6 starts. Lonan's heartbeat and the church bells gong in a staccato so identical. He doesn't notice he's walked an hour and a half away from the motel. He doesn't remember why he's walking or what he started. Doesn't remember the last time he slept or his mother's maiden name. He doesn't remember when it started to rain or what rain really is or what the cycle of precipitation looks like or which stage he's currently in. He doesn't remember how many sisters he has or the difference between astronomy and astrology. He only remembers the sequence of how to pray the rosary. 10 Hail Marys, 1 Our Father, Hail Mary, Our Father, Hail Mary, Our Father. This is what guides him to the cathedral. Lonan isn't Catholic anymore. He maybe never was. He can't even remember this. But he knows he's a sinner. God will never let him into heaven. And I read it and I was like, something immediately clicked when I read it. And I went, I used to hate this book, you know, and I've talked about this before on my channel about how I used to be very embarrassed by Mothwork and it really bothered me, that project, to bring it up. I kind of just like brushed past it and I don't know why. It was just after I finished the project, it became this like thing, like an element of shame for me. I'm not really sure why, and it took until this year. So I wrote it in 2019. I finished it in early 2020, and it took until this year, 3 years later, to almost 4 years really since I started the book, to come to terms with this is actually really good and I really like it. And so it's put into perspective some things I wanted to talk about, which is really this gentleness aspect. You know what? It's really hard to judge where you're currently at with writing, because you could be like me and 3-4 years later look back on the thing that you were very embarrassed by and be like, why did I feel that way? And I think it really points to a larger discussion about writers. I don't know what exactly, maybe that it's always great to have a support system that'll support you, that it's always great to build the support you have for yourself. But I think there was so much of me when I wrote this, when I was so young, that didn't think that it was good enough. And now the first couple chapters of Mothwork, so until about chapter 7, there aren't that many chapters. I think there are 10 chapters in the book. The book is very tight. And it was because I did like 4, I think, rounds of pretty rigorous revision on the book. There weren't any like structural changes. There were line changes. And sometimes I wonder what the original draft looked like, because I did so many rounds of line edits because I couldn't handle any inkling that I could be embarrassed in the future by the writing. That's what really drove me to edit the crap out of it. And something that I was thinking today was, me from 3 years from now, so 2020, 2019, let's say 4 years, because really Mothwork I think of as a 2019 project. So me from 4 years from now, that's going to be 2027, which sounds really terrifying. But anyway, I will be, how old will I be? I don't know how old. 26? I think I'll be 26. Yeah, 26, I think. Yeah, I'll be 26 in 2027. Me then will look back on Body Back, or look back on Hallowed Bodies, and look back on those moments where I was unsure of myself and be like, why were you worried about this? I'm not here to say that you're never going to write poorly, because there are moments that you will, but at the end of the day, time makes those things matter so much less. Sometimes in the moment, it can feel like this is such a crushing like defeat, and I think it's good. You should feel those emotions. I think it's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to feel upset with your writing, to feel like, oh man, I wish I could do better, this is frustrating, this isn't how I want it. But it's also, I think, okay, like here we go with the dialectics, to know that in a couple of years you're gonna look back and be like, why was I upset about that? Because I was doing a really good job. Or even if it's I wasn't doing a really good job. Sometimes you don't even think about the mistakes because time has gone by so much that you're just impressed at what you could do at a younger age or what you were doing at that time in your life. So being gentle is something that I want to continue to do because I don't think of myself as somebody who's hard on myself, but I think maybe it's more in insidious ways. I don't generally have negative self-talk. I used to when I was like a younger teenager, but not anymore, which is something I'm very grateful for and something that I think I have been working on. And since I went to university, really my confidence has built quite a bit. So I don't ever really feel, that badly about myself. But I think there are moments where I doubt myself, of course, where I doubt, oh my God, I don't even think I'm a good writer. I've been thinking of that a lot recently. I'm like, I don't think I'm worried that I can't write a novel because I don't know if I can do it. And I don't know why I feel that way. I have been writing for so long. I have a lot of experience and I write really good things. So I don't know why I would think that. All the evidence, if we're looking at something, a logical conclusion points to the fact that I can do it. And if I can't do it, it's really not the end of the world. I don't need to do it perfectly. It's just that I'm doing it that matters. And so that's why I think just opening Mothwork again, which is a book I've reread many times this year. I think I've reread it twice already and have started like 2 other rereads. So it's a book that, I'm very familiar with now this year. But even now, just opening it again, you'd think it would just get old, the realization of, oh, this is actually so good. I can't believe I felt bad about it. But every single time I open this book and I read parts that I used to be very ashamed of, I'm just like, wow, I can't believe I ever felt that way. It's always shocking every single time. And it puts things into perspective. I'm not happy with my scene in Hallowed Bodies. Maybe I won't be happy with it when I reread it in 4 years. Me right now cares a lot about that. Me in 4 years is not going to care about that. And this is also how I know that I'm not ready yet to revise feeding habits because I know that I think I will take moments of it personally if I don't like it. But it's hard to accept that I don't need to take mistakes in my writing or imperfections in my writing personally. They're just moments of a journey. And I don't do that as often with my other art forms. I play the guitar. Hello. This is Jeff Leah, my new guitar. This guitar here. Like, I don't get as upset when I make mistakes. And yes, I still do struggle with perfectionism in my other art forms. But it's not as bad. Like, if I miss a note, I just do it again when I'm playing the guitar. I just try it again. Sometimes it gets frustrating. I'm like, I've been here for like an hour and this is still not working. And sometimes I have to abandon things that I can't play altogether. At the end of the day, I don't typically feel like the world is ending when I mess up a song on the guitar, and I've been writing for a similar amount of time that I've been playing the guitar, but with writing, it feels very bad when I can't get past something that I'm not happy with. I wrote past this scene. This was chapter 2 that I'm struggling with in Hallowed Bodies. I wrote past it, but then I kept circling back to it. And this is very reminiscent of how I wrote Feeding Habits. I would write past the problem to try to push back, but then I would keep going back and I would keep going back and I keep going back. And this is how sometimes you can get into a cycle. And I will be honest, I don't think that the scene is good. I don't think that the chapter is good. I don't think it makes sense. And I don't think the motifs are set up, but does it matter? No, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I'm writing, and writing doesn't need to be that serious, especially when it comes to projects that are just personal. This is just for me. I'm not publishing this. It's going to be for my eyes and some excerpts I share with you guys. And really, that's it. It just has to be something that I'm interested in writing. And I'm trying to keep that at the forefront. I'm trying to not put pressure to also be like, I just want to have fun. Because I remember I used to do that when I was struggling originally with feeling very insecure with my writing from about 2018 to 2019. I was very insecure. So I'd just be like, I don't care. Let's throw quality out the window. I have some videos talking about how I realized that that wasn't a great approach because I wanted the balance. But I do want to focus on the act of creation rather than the act of revision and the act of overthinking. I love revision, but sometimes there's a time and place to think about making something better, and sometimes the purpose of a project is just to write it and not to worry about, am I improving? Is this better than the last thing I wrote? I keep thinking of this thing because, Body Back seems to me, looking back, to have been easy to write, which is funny because I thought it would only take me a month to write and it took me 4 months. And the last 2 chapters were very hard. So I don't know what I'm talking. Actually, the last 3 chapters, even 24 Karat Harrison was really hard. But still, for some reason, I'm looking back and I'm like, that book wasn't difficult for me to write. And I feel like I should be able to do that again now because that was me in the past. So now I have all that knowledge and I should be able to write something better. And the fact of the matter is, it might not be better. Hallowed Bodies might be worse than Body Back. In my opinion, it is worse than Body Back because Body Back has a more interesting narrator. Sorry to pick Harrison over Lonan, but Harrison has a lot more interesting problems in Body Back. So I think generally speaking, from like a story perspective, Body Back is the better story. So that's not why I don't need to compare them, because they're in different levels. So I just want to enjoy writing Lonan's story because it's Lonan's story. I think something that's bugging me is that it's not as defined as Body Back, and I'm very used to writing something defined. Remember, the thing I've been writing the last couple years has been genre fiction. I've been writing a plot-driven genre fiction. I'm very used to defined goals and, defined plot points. Even Body Back had a really pretty strong plot. Even though it was vibes, there were strong things that this man was going to do in every single chapter. But Lonan's book is very meandery, and it's supposed to be like that. It's just supposed to be like a week in his life, and it's supposed to be boring, and it's supposed to be human, and it's just supposed to be normal, basically normal core Lonan, which is what this book is. So when it does that, I'm like, but I don't like it. Like, I don't, it's not connecting. And the thing is, I did like writing like the normal boring parts of the book of him just walking around. I think what's getting to me is when it's lacking a strong direction like Body Back did. But it's not Body Back. Lonan isn't going partying in Las Vegas. He's by himself for most of the book. And I do have a strong plot. I just haven't started it yet. So these are just moments of reflection where I'm just trying to put things into perspective and just be patient. I have also been struggling a lot with my chronic pain. So I have had chronic pain for 2 years. I am in the middle of dealing with doctors, and doctors are hard to deal with sometimes. I have been not having a very easy time, and my pain has gotten like disabling at this point. So I also can't do a lot during the day. So I've almost been like shuffled into a pathway where I have to be a bit more gentle with myself. If not, I'm just going to be upset all of the time. And that's how I was originally when my pain got worse, because I wasn't used to that, and I wasn't used to not being able to do as much and not being able to accomplish. And I am somebody who's always doing things, and it was really difficult for me to like accept that actually, and it's only within the last couple weeks that I've accepted this, actually, I can't do a lot in a day. I can't travel places. So if I wanted to go to a coffee shop, I can't, because I'm fatigued most of the time. I can try to find the middle ground, but I don't drive. So, I can't do as much as I could when I was in university and there was like a library. It's not that I don't have options, it's just that I haven't been trying. But to be fair, things are different now. My energy levels are different. My fatigue, my pain is different now. So I have to be aware, and so I have to be more gentle with myself now, because I can't do as much in a day. Like, it's 9:08 p.m. I'm going to go to bed soon. So I'm not going to write as much as I wanted to today. And it's okay, because I had to do other things. And even if I can only do 1 to 2 things a day, which is pretty much all I can do now at this point in my life because of my health problems, then that's what it is. And it's okay. So I'm just trying to remind myself, because that's not me. It's not really like, it's been very difficult for me because I'm always very, very on the go. And I've been like that my whole life. So it's hard when your body slows you down. But at the same time, it's kind of useful in learning to just also accept in my own writing that sometimes you have to slow down. Sometimes it's not going to be fast. Sometimes it's not going to be enjoyable. And sometimes it's not going to turn out the way that I'm thinking in my head. I feel like I've been getting pretty trapped in this, like, but I had an idea for this and I kind of want to stick with it. And today I just sat myself down and I was like, you know what? I am tired of waking up every day and looking at this document and not knowing what to do. I'm just going to do what I can. And then that's going to be the story. Whatever it is whatever it is. I don't need to worry about all these plans and ideas I have. I always think about, but I have this stuff in my notes and I want to stick to my notes and everything. And I had to remind myself, like, you have those ideas. Those ideas are still there. Like, they still exist, and it doesn't matter if you didn't use them. You still have them on the page. You still enjoyed thinking of them in the moment, and that's good. And sometimes plans change. And I was a lot more adaptable with my writing when I was younger. Like I would just like, you know, hack off plot plans that I had for years. I mean, that's how I ended up getting Mothwork in the first place, is I veered off into a very different direction. There was supposed to be a whole different plot. And I've gotten used to that. And so I have to remind myself that it's okay. No idea is a waste of time. Writing, there's no such thing as a waste of time. Like, you have those experiences, you have those moments, and it's okay if they don't end up like in the final thing. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about, just something kind of chill. How's writing going for you? I hope pretty good. And if it's not, if you're struggling, that's okay too. Listen, I feel like I'm in my struggle era right now. I feel like every time you see me on my channel, it's because I'm in my struggle era. To be fair, I've been in a bit of a struggle era since the last couple of months, so it's not over yet. I'm hoping like by NaNoWriMo, like by November, you know, the writing is strong and I'm like feeling it. But if that's not the case, it's okay. We take one day at a time. You are not alone if you feel this way. Like I said, I have been writing for 10 years, like consistently. This still happens. Like, I think on an AuthorTube perspective, it can be like, no, but you're an AuthorTuber, like you probably write frequently, you have a writing routine, and all of those things are true. But also, I still struggle. Like, it doesn't matter how many acceptances and publications and awards and external validation I get. At the end of the day, the writing is me, and I'm not perfect, and I'm going to have off days, and I'm going to feel like, oh God, this sucks, because it's a very human thing. So you're not alone if you feel that way. So if it makes you feel better, if you're like newer to writing, I hope it doesn't make you feel worse, like, oh God, it's gonna last forever, because that's not true. I have gained a lot of confidence and love my writing way more than I did when I was younger. It just goes to show that you're not alone in this experience. Even people who have been writing for a really long time have these days, and it's just a normal part of the process, and everything passes over time. I never thought I would get out of feeding habits. That felt like purgatory. Honestly, writing that book was purgatory for me. I never would have guessed that I'd write Seventh Virtue, which was like the biggest joy of my life, or that I'd write Body Back, which was mostly a joy and then kind of, you know, ended up not being a joy, but now looking back was a real joy. And then now I'm at Hallowed Bodies, which is a very different experience for me. So all writing experiences are valid and all writing experiences are different. So it's okay if from project to project things change. It happens to me too. Thank you so much for listening to this. If you want more AuthorTube Real Talks, let me know and I will capture more of my existential ramblings about writing in another video. But thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in another one. Bye.